Everybody, welcome back to When Harry Met Board Games. Today we have another playthrough. Today we're going to be playing through this game right here. Dungeon Quest, Dare You Face the Dragons Challenge. And Dungeon Quest is a classic game. Originally designed and published in the 1980s by Games Workshop. This here is a Fantasy Flight reiteration or reimplementation, the third edition as it's called. There was a future fourth edition, but this is the one that I own. And this has been reimagined in the Room-bound universe. And basically in this game, players take on the role of heroes who are exploring the High Lord Dragon Caladra's chamber and dungeon, trying to acquire as much loot and treasure as possible before they are killed. But this is quite a challenge, quite the undertaking, because this is a dangerous dungeon here. And here is what the board looks like. This board here represents all the dungeon space here. This center space right here is Caladra's inner chamber, where you will find the most valuable of all treasures. But right now the spaces start out empty because this is a tile placement game. Long before Carcassonne, we had Dungeon Quest as probably the original tile placement game. So we got a bunch of deck of cards that are all shuffled and placed on their respective stacks here. Let me clean this up a bit here. So we have our dungeon deck, our crypt deck, our corpse deck, our door deck, search deck, trap deck, treasure deck, and catacomb deck. We also have some additional deck of cards that are shuffled here on the side. We have some combat cards. Here we have some rune cards. And here we have the dragon lair cards for when we actually enter the dragon's inner chamber over here. And then we have some tokens that we're going to need throughout the course of the game. They're just spread out here. We have some monsters here, which are actually represented by these face down tokens that actually reveal their health values, but we will not know that until we engage in combat. I will be playing this game solo. There are some changes in this game from solo versus multiplayer. This is a competitive game where if multiple people were playing, they'd be competing to be the player who escapes the chamber with the most treasure possible. Both of those conditions are necessary. They need to A, escape the chamber, and B, they need to have more treasure than any other opponent. In a solo game, you're just trying to escape the dungeon with any treasure at all. That in and of itself is quite the feat. So we have this sunset track here, which is basically a timer. It's basically a ticking time bomb. We have until around here to escape the dungeon safely. Once we get to this spot in the track, we start rolling dice to see if the sun has set and we still have some time. And once we make it to this final spot, that's it. The day's over. If you are still in the dungeon, you have lost the game. So we do have this sun marker here, and that will keep track of that. Each player is going to get a character. There are 6 characters in the game. The cool thing about this third edition is that each of the characters also come with additional components that make them playable characters in some of the other Terranoth games in Fantasy Flight's line of games. In particular, Rune Wars and Runebound 2nd edition. So this character here, Krutzbeck, let's see what it says here. First of all, let's explain the card over here. This right here is his health. So Krutzbeck is actually the strongest character in the game. He has 20 health. That means he can sustain 20 damage before he's knocked out or killed. I do play with a variant. So here we go. Death can wait. And basically it means that heroes don't actually get killed. They only get knocked out, because this game is extremely hard without that variant. So he's got 20 health. He has some stats here. So his combat is 9. That's a very good score right there. He's very good at fighting monsters. His agility is a 5, so it's about average. His armor, this is his armor here, that is a 5 as well, so it's also above average. And finally, we have his luck, which is only a 3. So that is below average. He is not very lucky. So attribute tests that require his luck are more likely than not going to come out in his favor, or not going to come out in his favor. So let's see his special ability here. He says, whenever you encounter a monster, you must always attack. You can never choose to escape. So usually when you encounter monsters in this game, you do have the option to attempt an escape. And it's basically a little bit of card play. See if you can outsmart your opponent and be able to escape them. If not, you have to engage in combat. It also says, during the draw card step of combat, you may fill your hand to 6 combat cards instead of 5. So that's going to be very useful, because these combat cards are what you're going to use to, or it's what you're going to choose to play in order to be successful in combat. He already has a good strength score, and he's going to be able to draw additional combat cards. So he's a great fighter. And then we have some flavor text here. It says, you are too weak. Go and find someone stronger to defend these treasures from me. Okay, so we are done. Each player is going to place their hero in one of the 4 tower corners of the board. So this game can play up to 4 players. So here is my miniature of Krutzbeck over here, wielding his axe. So on your turn, you have one of 2 options. You can either move into another space, and if it's empty, you explore and reveal a dungeon tile. Or if you are already in a room or a chamber, you can search that chamber if it indeed is searchable. In this case, we are in the tower, so we have to move. So we're going to draw one of these tiles here, and we are going to place it right here. And each tile has a white arrow. The white arrow always has to face the direction, or comes from the direction that you have just came from. So in this case, we've come from here. So we're going to always step over that white arrow to enter our dungeon room. So here I am. This is a basic room here. There is nothing special about it. It does have a torch here, a search icon, which means on future turns, if I choose to stay there, I can search this room for treasure. But whenever you enter a room, either for the first time or you re-enter a room, you have to draw a dungeon deck card. So let's see here. We've got this crypt. So basically, whenever we draw a crypt card, it tells us you may search the crypt for a treasure. If you choose to, draw 1 crypt card. So here is the crypt deck. And sometimes you could find good things in the crypt. Sometimes you could find bad things. Sometimes you'll find nothing at all. So the card did tell us that we are risk takers here, so we will draw this. And look at that, we found some treasure, gold coins worth 90. So even though we have this treasure deck over here with tons of cards, sometimes you might find treasure in some of these other cards, like the crypt deck or the corpse deck, or even the catacombs deck. All right, so we are done with that. Our turn is over. We will move on to the next turn. And we will move the sunset marker 1 space. It moves 1 space at the beginning of each turn. For the first turn of the game, it does not move. So now is that the timer has begun. And now we are faced with the same decision as last time. Do we want to move or do we want to search? And because the room has a torch icon, I have the option to search. So I will choose to search. So I'm going to look over here for the search deck. I'm going to draw the top card here, and it's some more gold coins, and it's 60 worth of gold coins. So I'm off to a pretty good start as far as finding treasure. Sometimes it takes me several turns into a game to have found this much, so I'm happy. This little key token right here basically represents the starting player. There is no starting player, but I really like the key. So we're done with that. We're going to move on to the next turn, and we are going to advance the sunset track here. And now, again, I am confronted with the decision, do I want to move or do I want to search? By the way, when it comes to searching, you can never search the same room more than 2 times in a row. So if I do search it 2 times in a row, the following turn, I will be obligated to move out of that room. Now, if I ever went back into that room for whatever reason, then again, I would be able to search it for up to 2 turns in a row. but you can never do 3. So I am going to search yet again. It's early on in the game. I don't feel the pressure of the time just yet. So I'm going to search again. And this room is empty. So don't think that everything in this search deck is good. Sometimes you will find bad things here, and sometimes you'll find nothing at all. Okay, so we are done with our turn yet again. We will advance this track over here. And now I have searched 2 times in a row, so I cannot search again. So instead, I'm going to choose to advance, and I am going to draw a dungeon tile. And I do have a few directions that I can move. This chamber here has 3 openings. So I'm going to choose, you know what? I'm going to choose to move towards the right here. And again, I've got to place the arrow so that it lines up with the pathway from which I'm coming. So your hero is always going to step over that arrow. So as you see here, this is actually pretty unfortunate that I chose to go to the right, because now I have this situation where the only exit points towards the wall, and you cannot go into the wall. So I'm kind of in a bind here. I have nothing I can do as far as exit's concerned, so I'm gonna have to work my way back over that way anyhow. Okay, so we are done. Wait, I have to draw a dungeon card. Every time you enter a room for the first time, you do have to encounter that room. The Dead Adventurer is an event card. It says you may search the body for treasure. If you choose to do so, draw 1 corpse card. So I will draw a corpse card here. And it says Scorpion. This is a threat. You're going to roll 1 die to determine how many wounds the Scorpion inflicts. So this doesn't even give you any options. You will be wounded. The question is how much. So I'm going to roll 1 6-sider here. And I will be taking 2 wounds. So luckily for me, Krutzbeck over here is very strong. He's got a health of 20. But my goodness, for me trying to search that body, I got stung by a scorpion. Okay, so we are done. Now we are going to advance the track here. And I'm going to choose to search. I don't know if I'm going to search twice in a row because unfortunately I do not have the option of just leaving this room. I'm going to have to work my way back. But I am going to search once at least. See what I draw here. And it's a secret door. Okay, so this might actually be a good thing. So you may immediately move to any adjacent space. If the space is unexplored, place a dungeon chamber as normal. If you encounter a monster, you cannot escape. So that's irrelevant for Krutzbeck because he cannot escape, period. But if you were a hero that were able to escape in this particular situation, you would not be able to. So that was actually just what the doctor ordered. I was going to have to make my way back through there, but now I don't have to. Now I'm going to continue. I'm going to explore this empty space. I found a secret door that leads me there. I'm going to draw a dungeon tile as regular. And here we go. Again, the arrow always has to face the direction from which you're coming from. And I'm going to go here. And this is perfect because this gives me 2 potential pathways that I could explore. Actually, this is a corridor space. So I actually am required to move again immediately. And the corridors are distinguished by their gold arrows as opposed to the white arrows. So I will have to move immediately. I'm going to choose to continue moving in this direction. I will draw yet another tile here. And oh goodness, look what I got here. I got this trap chamber here. I draw a trap card when I enter it. So that is awful news. Okay, so here is my trap deck. I will draw and hope for nothing. And we've got a cave-in. Keep this card. At the start of each of your turns, you've got to test your agility to cross the cave-in. If you succeed, discard this card and continue your turn as normal. If you fail, your turn ends immediately. So I will keep this cave-in card here. This is really bad news. Luckily, it doesn't require a luck check as many traps do. Instead, it revolves a agility check, which his score is not terrible. Not too good either. Okay, so we are done with that. We're going to advance the tracker over here. And we're going to continue going. So now again, at the beginning of my turn, I got to make an attribute test for my agility. And when you make an attribute test, what you do is you roll 2 6-sided dice. And as long as your result is equal to or lower than your attribute, you have passed. If it's higher than your attribute score, you have failed, which is why higher attribute scores are more useful. All right, so here we go. We're going to roll 2 dice. I rolled an 8, which is higher than my agility of 5. So I have failed. And basically, I cannot continue my turn until I succeed at that test. So this will be the end of my turn. However, every time you fail an attribute test, you get to gain one of these determination tokens. And you can use these determination tokens to modify your attribute score by 1 until you pass that current challenge that you're trying to pass. So for as long as I'm trying to test out of this cave in here, I'll be able to use these determination tokens until I succeed at it. So I am done with my turn, and I will have to advance the track here. So this isn't good. I do not want to be stuck here for too long. So we're going to continue going. I'm going to test my attribute score again, which is a 5 plus a 1 because of my determination token there. And I rolled a 6. And now, thanks to this determination token, I have exactly 6, which means I have passed this test. Because I've passed this encounter, I do now have to discard my determination token. And I get to discard this card. And I get to continue my turn as normal, which means I will move here. There's nothing to search in this room, so I will move yet again. And I'll draw a new tile over here. Okay, so things did not work exactly the way I wanted to. I am lined up, or not quite yet. I'm still 1 space away from being lined up with Caladra's inner chamber here. So that's fine. Okay, so I've entered this room, and I do have exit out of here this way. This one is irrelevant. I can't go into walls. But I will draw the top card of the dungeon deck here. And it's yet another dead adventurer. So I'm finding tons of dead adventurers who tried exploring Caladra's dungeon and failed. And here I am trying to, search their bodies for loot instead of losing hope, thinking that I might share their fate. Okay, so I'm going to draw the top card of the corpse deck. And it is rope. So I may discard this rope when I encounter a trap door or hole in the roof. So I had just came from a trap door. That would have been great to not have to deal with that. Actually, that's a trap room, not a trap door. But these are particularly for trap doors or holes in the roof. But it's good because I will automatically succeed instead of having to do a skill test. And usually for those, the skill test is like luck or something. And Krutzbeck is not a very lucky guy. So we are done with my turn. I will advance this marker up by 1. And now I am confronted with a decision again, whether or not I want to search or move. And I'm going to choose to search yet again. I don't know if I'm going to search twice in a row this time because I am starting to feel a little bit of the pressure of the time track here. We're not quite halfway, but we're about a 1/4 of the way into the game here. So I'm going to draw the top card of the search deck here. And oh goodness, it's a Ferox, a threat. You're going to roll 1 die to determine how many lives the Ferox has. And then you're going to test strength. If you succeed, the Ferox loses 1 life. If you fail, suffer 1 wound. But you have to continue testing strength until the Ferox loses all its life or you are killed. Great. So first I'm going to roll 1d6. I'm hoping for a low number. This will determine the amount of lives the Ferox will have. And I rolled a 4, which is actually a pretty good number for them. So I'm going to have to kill him or defeat him 4 times. So now I'm going to roll 2d6. And that's going to test my strength to simulate combat against the Ferox. I will let you know there is actually more detailed combat with these particular monsters these 5 major monsters in the game. However, there are some additional monsters that you kind of have these little skill checks to determine whether you defeat them or not. So, Krutzbeck's strength is a 9, so I'm hoping to roll a 9 or lower. And I did, an 8. So that is 1 time that I've defeated the Ferox. I'll place a heart there to remind me. That's a 6, so that is 2 times I've defeated the Ferox. That is another 6, so that is 3 times. So it pays off having a strong character like Krutzbeck here. And that is a 7, which again is enough to pass the skill check. So I will have defeated the Ferox without having suffered any additional damage myself. And now we are done with the turn. So that's what I get for trying to search that room. We'll advance the track here. And I'm going to choose to continue moving. So let's draw a dungeon tile here. Oh, snap. So this here is the rotating room. So when the rotating room is placed on the board, after the hero has entered, the chamber rotates 180 degrees. Then the hero turns in. The rotating room only ever rotates once. If a hero enters the chamber again, it does not rotate. Okay, so I will enter this room. It will rotate 180 degrees. Unfortunately for me, now I am no longer going to end up being able to go straight into the inner chamber. I'm going to have to hopefully find a way to go this way. Sometimes there are situations where a adventurer will enter a room, and after the chamber rotates, they'll actually be found with a dead end, and they'll basically be stuck, which basically means that they are dead. Or at least they have 2 turns to search for a secret door, right? So there is that. You can search for a secret door, but if you ever remain trapped for 2 turns in a row, you are dead. Okay, so I am done with that turn. I do have to draw a dungeon deck card first. And I have found a crypt here. So it tells me here, you may search the crypt for treasure. If you choose to, draw 1 crypt card. So I will draw a crypt card here. And I've got old bones. Great. So I found some old bones. I'm going to roll 1 die. On a roll of 1 to 3, nothing happens. But on a 4 to 6, the bones spring back to life and they attack you. And then you're going to resolve the combat using skeleton power cards and tokens, but you must attack. You cannot escape. Okay, so I'm going to roll a die here. And I rolled 5. So now I am going to have to fight the skeleton here. And here we go. I will draw one of these tokens here representing the skeleton that I'm fighting, and I will place it here, and I revealed it, and that is the health of the skeleton. The skeleton has 3 health. Now when you're playing multiplayer, you actually don't know the health of the enemy you're fighting. Instead, only another player, your player to your left, controls that monster, and you don't know that you've defeated the monster until you actually have defeated the monster. Okay, so now we are going to do some combat here. Let's show you what combat looks like in this game. And here in 3rd edition, the combat is card-based. So the players will draw a hand of 5 combat cards. In the solo variant, there is no other player to manage this, this enemy here. So I'll show you how that goes. But I still would draw 5 cards. Because I have Krutzbeck here with his special ability, I actually draw 6 combat cards to get ready for combat. So that's 4, that's 5, and that's 6. So let's look at these cards here. There are 3 types of combat here. You've got melee combat with red, you've got ranged combat with blue, and you've got magic combat with yellow. And what you're looking for is the numeric values on the upper left-hand corner. So the numbers range from 1 through 4. So 1 is a weak attack and 4 is a very strong one. You can only play 1 card. So you got to choose wisely. Ideally, you want to play the highest values you have. So here I have this 4, and that's what I'm going to choose to play. a 4. Now, these icons here on the upper right-hand corner determine a counter attack. So as you see, the 4 here is a very powerful attack, so it has no counter attack, which means if you play this card and your opponent actually plays a value equal to or higher than you, or equal to or higher you, yes, you have the opportunity to counter attack them as long as your opponent played an attack card of this specific type. So that's an interesting way to make up for perhaps having a weaker hand of cards drawn, let's say. So I'm going to play this Heart Strike here. Now, in a solo game, you simply draw the top card of the combat card face down. This will represent the attack of the monster. We're going to reveal it here. And they also got a 4. So we are actually tied. So this is a standoff here. We're going to continue another round of combat. But what happens is whenever you finish, the loser, or in this case, the tied players, are going to take the cards that they played and they're going to place them somewhere in between the two fighting characters. And this is going to represent the combat stack. These cards can come into play later on to deal additional damage if players play attack types of this same color. And I will explain that shortly. Now, this player here is going to discard the remainder of their cards. They do not keep them. And now we're going to start a new round of combat where we draw a new hand of 5 cards. In the case of Krutzbeck, it's going to be 6. So that's 3, 4, 5, and 6. And let's see here what I want to do. Okay, so I've got the Heart Strike again. I'm going to go for it. So here is Heart Strike. And now they're going to just play the top card of the deck here. And this here is a Rapid Fire, which is less than the Heart Strike. Here's the thing. As I mentioned, on the upper right-hand corner, he has this counter attack for melee. So because I played a melee, he gets to counter attack. So as long as he has other cards that match this type, he can play all of them until he equals or surpasses the amount of attack that I have here. So for the solo game, again, the monsters do not have a hand of cards. So you simply draw 5 cards, and any of them that are eligible, you would use. So as you can see here, he only drew 1. So he will add this to his attack, but that brings him to 5, which is enough to defeat my 4. So he actually beat me in this round of combat. So what's going to happen? The loser is going to add their card here to the combat stack. So these, again, can play a factor later on in future attack rounds. But the winner is going to take the 2 cards, or all of the cards that they played, and they're going to assign them to the loser in their damage stack. So this represents my damage stack. This means that eventually, when this combat is over, I'm going to sustain at least 1 damage for every card in my damage stack. So that's 1 and 2. Okay, so now we will continue combat, because combat continues until somebody gets knocked out or killed. So I will draw a new hand of 6 cards here. 5, 6. And let's see what we have here. Okay, so I'm going to play, I am incentivized to play yellow or red cards because the combat stack has these here. But at the same time, I feel like I desperately need a win. So I'm going to play this Barrage ranged attack card that gives me 4. We're going to play the top card here for the enemy. And it's a 3. They do have a counter attack for magic, but not for ranged attack, which means I will win this combat. So I'm simply going to place this card here next to the skeleton, representing the fact that they have 1 damage. Remember, their health is 3, which means I just have to assign them 3 damage and they are killed. So the loser will place this here in the combat stack. So all of a sudden, red has become more valuable, because whenever you deal damage with red, not only will you deal damage for all the cards in your current attack, but you're also going to add all the red cards that are in the combat stack over here. So this can actually build up to a very massive death blow, as the rules refer to it. Okay, so I'm going to draw a new hand of 6 cards. Let me just draw them like this, face up. So that's 3, that's 4, and that's 5. I draw 6 because of Krutzbeck here. Whew. So you know what? I'm going to choose to play this here. If he plays a ranged attack, I do have counter attack for that. 3 is a pretty high number. And there's 1 yellow card in the combat stack, which means if I win, I'll be able to deal him 2 damage, will be enough to eliminate him. So we're going to reveal and play this card here. And it's a 2. He cannot counter attack magic. So I have won this battle. I will deal him a 2nd damage, plus any card that matches that type from the combat stack will also be dealt as damage for a death blow. And that is 3 damage, which means I have defeated the skeleton here. So I will simply discard that. I'll never fight that skeleton type again. Perhaps another token of the skeletons, but not that particular one. And I'll discard all the combat cards now. And that's basically what combat looks like in this game. Luckily, I survived. I did have these 2 damage cards, so I will discard them now and put 2 additional hearts on my character to indicate the damage suffered. Okay, and now we are done with that turn. So the last couple attempts of exploring and searching for things has not worked in my favor. I will advance the track over here, and I am going to choose between searching and moving, and I'm going to choose to move. I'm feeling the pressure to get to the inner chamber there. So let me just draw a tile over here. Okay. And this is perfect because it gives me an opening upward. So I will enter this room over here. And I will draw the top card of the dungeon deck here. Oh no, it's a golem monster. You may attack or try to escape. Again, remember that Krutzbeck here cannot escape. So I got to look for the golems here and randomly choose one. I'll choose this one here. Again, if you were playing multiplayer, the human player to your left would reveal the health, and only they would know until you knock out this monster. But now I know that this monster has a health of 6. I'm going to place it here in the room with me. And now I have to engage in yet another round of combat. So again, I will draw, and this is going to be a lot harder because his health is 6, not just 3 like the skeleton there. So I will draw a hand of 6 cards. Remember, normally your hand is just 5, but Krutzbeck gets 6 cards here. All right, and I've got some good choices here. So it's a matter of 4 or 4. I have no idea what they're going to play, so I'm going to play this here. This 4 barrage card. And we're going to play the top card here for the monster. And that's a 1. He can counterattack against magic, but not range. So I have won this battle. So we will assign this damage over here. This here will remain in between us as the combat stack. So again, in the future, players or the AI can capitalize on that card there. I'm going to draw a new hand of 6 cards. 3, 4, 5, and 6. Let's see what I have here. Okay, so... Whew. Oh, goodness. I am wondering... You know what? I'm going to play this 3 rapid fire ranged attack card. We're going to see what the enemy here plays. And they've got a 4, so they will win this round of combat here. I cannot counter magic. So we will add this here to the combat stack. This here is added to my damage stack. And I will discard the rest of the cards, draw back to a hand of 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I'm looking here, and you know what? Again, I'm going to choose to play the rapid fire card over here. You know what? Either way, I'm probably... No, I'm going to play the rapid fire card. Let's see what happens here. So they're going to play this top card here, reveal it, and it's a 3 as well. Neither one of us can counterattack each other. Well, actually, no. I could counterattack melee. So because I'm equal to or lower than their value, I get to counterattack. I can only add as many cards as allows me to pass him, which will be 1. So here we go. And I have defeated him. So not only do I get to add these 2 cards to the damage stack, but I get to add any card from the combat stack or any cards from the combat stack that match that same attack type. So there we go. All of a sudden, we have dealt 4 damage. Now the loser adds this card here to the combat stack, and we are done with this round of combat, and we will resume. I do have to shuffle up the cards because we ran out of them to draw a new hand of 6. Okay, so now we will draw a hand of 6 cards for combat. I am 2 damage away from defeating this golem here and moving on with my life. Okay. And this is a very red heavy card, but you know what? That's great because there are other red cards in the combat stack. So if I win, this will secure my victory. All right, so they will reveal, and they have a 4 to a 2. However, they can counterattack melee. So we're going to draw the top 5 cards, and they can play as many cards as they need to that match their type. And let's see here. They only drew 1 here. This 1 blue card, which is not going to be enough to match up with their 4. So I will win this combat. I will assign not only this one, but all cards that match that type in the combat stack as well. And that is 7 damage, which is more than enough to defeat this golem here with 6 health. So they are done. I have only sustained 1 damage, so I'll discard this and add a heart token here. We will discard the rest of the combat cards over here, and we will move on with the game and with our lives. Okay, so we are done here, and we'll move on to the next turn. We'll advance this token here. And I am not going to choose to search at this point. Things are getting too dangerous for me. So instead, I am going to advance upward, hopefully making it to Caladra's inner chamber here. And I'm going to draw a tile over here. And this is what I've got. So I've got a portcullis here. So instead of having a regular open pathway to get into, I have to deal with this portcullis. So in order to move through here, I can't just simply step over it. I have to successfully pass a strength test. So luckily for me, my strength attribute is pretty high. So I'm going to roll these 2 dice, and as long as it's 9 or lower, I am fine. And that is a 6. So I will be able to cross over here and enter this room. I will draw a dungeon card here, and it says passage down. You can place a catacomb entrance marker on this chamber. Ooh, so that is cool. I will place a catacomb entrance marker here, and on a future turn, if I wanted to, instead of advancing to another room, I could choose to simply enter the catacombs. So that's something to consider. Okay, so we are done with this turn. We are going to advance through here. And now I have a choice. I actually have 3 choices. Do I search this room because it does have a torch icon? Do I continue moving? And in this case, I do not have a pathway upward, so I would have to move to the left and then go upward. Eventually, I'm going to have to move to the left anyways. But you know what? I'm actually going to choose the 3rd option, which is I'm going to choose to enter the catacomb. And when you enter the catacombs, what's interesting is first of all, you remove your hero figure from the board. You place them on your card. And instead, you look for the token here that matches your hero. So right here is my Krutzbeck token. You place it on the tile in which you enter the catacomb, and it has an arrow, and you place the arrow in the direction that you want to travel towards. So this is really cool. It's like you're underneath the dungeon and you're traveling to some extent uninterrupted. So I'm going to place this token facing upward because basically I want to be able to move up as many spaces as I can. And that's something to consider because when you leave the catacombs, and you cannot leave whenever you want, you need to draw a card that allows you to leave the catacombs, you're going to be able to move a number of spaces in that direction equal to the amount of cards in your discard pile from the catacomb encounters. So that's something to consider. You got to hope that things work out in your favor. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do with my turn. I am done. I will advance this here. And now that I've entered the catacombs, I am going to draw the top card of the catacomb deck. And it says hidden trap. So I'm going to have to draw a trap card here. And it says crossfire trap. Arrows fire from the walls at you. Test your armor. If you fail, suffer a number of wounds equal to the amount you failed by. So my armor right now is at 5. I will roll these dice here. And I rolled a 4, so I succeeded. As long as you roll equal to or lower, you succeed. So I'm done. I'm going to keep this here in my catacombs discard pile. And now we will advance the track here by 1. We're almost at the halfway point here, so that's something to factor in. Okay, I will draw yet another card from the catacombs deck, and it's empty. This room is empty, so that's actually a good thing when you're in the catacombs. No dangers. Okay, so we are done with that. We will advance this yet again. I will draw another card from the catacombs. Exit. So you have found a way out of the catacombs. If you wish, you may exit the catacombs. So it gives you the option. Here's the thing. If I were to exit, I would be 1, 2, 3 spaces upward, which lines up with Caladra's inner chamber. That's great. Let's just say I was 1 or 2 off. I could always choose to stay in the catacombs, but at the risk that it would be a while before you draw your next exit opportunity. So I am going to choose to exit. I will leave, and that means that potentially I could end up 1, 2, 3 spaces here. Now here's the thing. Now that I'm exiting, I also have to roll a die. I have to choose a direction and roll a die. And when you roll the die, you are going to move your character in one direction. You have to pick left or right. I'm going to choose left. You're going to move your character to that direction, a number of spaces equal to the pip value that you rolled on your 1 6-sided die. So I rolled a 1, which is actually perfection. I get to move him to the left 1 space, which will bring him right above the chamber. So now he worked his way through the catacombs. He found a secret passageway directly into Caladra's inner chamber. Now, you can never move yourself outside of the walls, but a 6 would have definitely put you pretty far away from where you're trying to get to, right? So there is a little bit of press your luck with this decision to go to the catacombs, but it worked out in my favor. So I've entered this room. I will not be able to encounter the room in the same turn that I exited the catacomb, but on my next turn, I will be able to encounter this room. So I will advance this token here, and now it's my next turn. And when you are in Caladra's dungeon, in her chamber, you get to draw a dragon card. So you draw a card from the dragon deck here and resolve it for what it says. And most of the cards say the same thing, which is that Caladra is sleeping. And because Caladra's sleeping, you are allowed to draw 2 cards. On your next turn, you may either exit the treasure chamber or stay and draw another dragon card. So most of the cards in the dragon deck say that Caladra's sleeping. There's one card that shows that Caladra has awoken and basically is going to attack you and deal you lots of damage. So That's a little bit of a press your luck, but only one of the cards actually has Caladra waking up. So I'm going to draw 2 treasure cards thanks to that, and I'm going to draw 1, and this is a 350 worth jeweled chakra here, so that's great. And I'm going to draw a second treasure card, and it's a flying carpet, which is not only worth 500 worth of value, but you may discard the flying carpet when you encounter a pit trap or a bottomless pit to automatically succeed at your skill test. So that is great. All right, so here we go. Gonna advance the track. I actually don't think I've ever played this game and have escaped the dungeon with anything more than maybe 1 loot card. And I have 5 loot cards here, so including 4 treasure. So that's actually pretty impressive. How appropriate that the first time is going to be caught on camera. So now I'm going to choose to either stay here in the chamber and draw another Dragon Lairs card, or I'm going to move and try to work towards my escape. And yeah, I'm going to try to escape. Absolutely. I am satisfied with what I've accomplished. So here is this room here. Oh, goodness. So we draw this room here, and it looks like it has a secret passageway or an entrance into the catacombs themselves. So although there is no exit to this room per se, other than going back into Caladra's chamber, I could go into the catacombs again and hope for it to work out in my favor my next turn. So let's see what I decide. We're going to advance the track here, and we're a few turns away from having to start rolling a die in order to see whether or not we are trapped inside the dungeon. So I am going to choose to go into the catacombs here. I am going to choose to do that. So I will remove my player piece there. I will grab the token, Krutzbeck's token here, and I will place it in the direction that I'm looking for. So I'm looking to go in that direction. And let's hope for the best here. Okay, so we will advance this marker here. I will draw the top card of the catacomb deck. And it says, a torch goes out. Keep this card. At the start of each of your turns, you're going to test your luck to relight your torch. If you succeed, discard this card and continue your turn as normal. If you fail, your turn ends immediately. Okay, so that is not too good because I have a terrible luck attribute. So we'll advance this. Again, if I am to do anything on my turn, I need to successfully pass this test at the beginning of my turn. So I will make a luck test here, which again, Krutzbeck's luck is only 3. And I rolled a 9. I failed. However, I do get a determination token, which can hopefully help me on future turns. My turn ends immediately. I will advance this right here, and I will make the same luck test yet again. I rolled a 10. I failed. I get yet another determination token. So eventually you will pass this test. The question is how much casualties were suffered in the meantime. Okay, so it's my next turn. I will roll again. And I rolled a 3, which would have been enough even without these determination tokens. But I have succeeded, luckily for me. It says you discard this card. When it comes to the catacombs, you keep your discarded cards in the same area anyways, because again, you're using them to count your progress through the dungeon. So I will draw the next card in the catacombs deck. And it's a deep elf threat. You may discard any loot, any of your loot, as a bribe, and then roll 1 die and multiply the result by 100. If the result is less than the total gold value of your discarded loot, you may exit the catacombs. Okay. If the die result is higher, the deep elf attacks you. Resolve the combat using sorcerer power cards and tokens, but you must attack. You cannot escape. Okay, so I gotta choose a loot. Then I got to roll 1 die and multiply the result by 100. If the result is less than the gold value, oh man, so I'm incentivized to give something up up lots of value in order to hope that I don't have to fight this deep elf here. So you know what? I will give up my 500. Even without that, this would still be more than I've ever escaped this dungeon with. So I'm going to offer him my flying carpet, and I'm going to roll a die. And as long as I roll a 5 or less, I'm good. And I rolled a 1, so I am fine because you multiply that 1 by 100, that's 100. It's less than the flying carpet's 500. It would have still been fine with this. These two are automatically not going to be good. So now, not only do I not have to fight the deep elf, but I get to exit the dungeon if I wish to, and I'm actually going to choose to exit the dungeon. So I have 2 cards here in my catacomb discard pile, so I will advance 2 spaces upward, but now I have to roll a 6-sided die. I have to choose a direction, and I'm going to choose to move to the right, because that's going to bring me closer to this tower, which I need to get to in order to win. And I rolled a 2, so it will move me 2 spaces to the right, right here. So this is an unexplored area. I am going to draw and play a tile here. And when you're exiting a catacomb, you do not encounter that dungeon room right then and there, but instead on your next turn. Okay, so now we are going to advance the marker here, and we are dangerously close to the end here, folks. So I have to be efficient with my moves. So now instead of moving or searching, I am actually forced to encounter the dungeon room. So you do not encounter the dungeon room on the same turn that you exit the catacombs, but instead it's a mandatory choice for your next turn. So I will draw the top card of the dungeon deck here, and I've got yet another dead adventurer, and it tells me here that I could search the body for treasure if I choose to draw 1 card. So do I want to draw more treasure at this point? I gave up my flying carpet. Let me discard that. Do I want to draw? You know what? I'm not going to search him because just in case something really bad happens, at this point, I'm really just trying to make it out of here with my life. Okay, so we are going to advance the token up by 1. Let's see what we can do here. I'm really hoping for some corridors that allow me to advance through the dungeon quicker. So, all right, there we go. I did get a corridor. Unfortunately, it doesn't face in the direction that I would have wanted to. But whenever you draw a corridor, which are indicated by these yellow arrows instead of white ones, you immediately have to move again. You do not stay there. So, okay, I drew this right here. And you got to line up the arrow accordingly. And now I will enter over here. I will draw a dungeon card. And I've got yet another dead adventurer. And again, I'm going to choose to pass. I am not going to search their body for treasure. And this is going to be my last turn before I start having to roll dice in order to escape. And it's not looking good. Unless I draw some corridors and dungeon rooms with entrances that are in my favor, this is going to end badly, guys. All right, so let me draw a new dungeon tile here. Okay, so here we go. And we've got a room here that's surrounded by 3 doors. So I've entered that room. I will draw the top card of the dungeon deck. And we've got some razor wings. This is a threat. I'm going to roll 1 die. And I'm going to subtract 2 from the result to determine how many wounds the razor wing inflicts. So it's going to be some damage here. I rolled a 2. Oh, that's awesome. 2 minus 2 is 0. So nothing is going to happen there. And we are done. So now I'm going to advance this by 1. And now at this point of the track, what happens is the starting player, or in this case, the only player, is going to roll a 6-sided die. And as long as the roll is higher than the number in the circle, you live to fight another day. So as long as I don't roll a 1, the sun is not set. Okay, so I rolled a 4, so I still have more opportunities. I'm going to choose to advance. I'm going to move over here. And this time, because there is a door here, I don't just simply move. Instead, I have to draw a card from the door deck and resolve it. So let's see here. The door opens, luckily for us. So sometimes the door does not open or some other things might happen. But in this case, the door opens and you're allowed to move through the door into an adjacent space. So I will move into the adjacent space. I will draw a new dungeon tile here. And it's a corridor. This is great. This is great. So, again, when you enter a corridor, you get to move immediately, which is exactly the type of speedy move that I needed. And here we go. Okay, so this room here has a portcullis. And again, with a portcullis, it's simply a attribute test of strength. So I will roll 2d6s, and as long as it's 9 or lower, by far, I will be able to successfully cross over. So here I am in a new room. I will draw the top card of the dungeon deck, and we have yet another dead adventurer. And at this point, you guys can guess what I'm doing. I am too close to the finish line to risk it here. I took my risk early on in the game. That's usually how I play, and I get pretty conservative towards the end. So now we're going to advance this here, and now I got to roll a d6, and it has to be higher than a 1 or a 2. It cannot be a 1 or a 2. And I rolled a 1. It's over. The sun has set, and I have lost the game. Oh my goodness. Curious to see how things would have played out. Let's see here. I would have drawn this card. Again, an entrance into the catacombs. We'd have done over here. I don't know what I would have done at that point. I guess I would have gone into the catacombs. I would have drawn the top card of the catacomb, which would have been an exit, which means I would have probably ended up on this space here. Then we would have advanced here, and then I would have had to interact with whatever room that would have been. And this is just a nice fancy looking chamber with some doors. And then I probably would have been able to make it out right before the final turn. So, oh well, it's unfortunate. This is the most loot I've ever had towards the end of the game. So I have lost, but it was a close call. Well, that's it as far as our playthrough of Dungeon Quest. Fun game, definitely not to press your luck. A little bit of strategy, but for the most part, it's just kind of tactical, reacting to the scenario and the situation before you, and just learning how to deal with the bad luck that you can encounter in this game. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us here when Harry Met Board Games. This is Harry saying take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have fun gaming. Bye-bye.